So welcome back. So before starting the session on astrochemistry, we will have Guy Perrin talking about the INSU viewpoint. Ah, j'ai le vieux programme.
PCMI at INSU.
PCMI at INSU CNRS.
Okay, from what I understood, you wanted to have an institutional point of view about PCMI. So what I've done, I've prepared just one slide, and I will essentially make a few statements. Some of you may be used to that slide that I usually present when discussing what we call the national programs in France at CNRS INSU. I don't know if you are all familiar with CNRS, INSU, and other institutes at CNRS. CNRS is organized in 10 institutes. One of them is the National Institute for Sciences in the Universe. And this is where you find astronomy and astrophysics, and I am the director for astronomy and astrophysics. And the way we are organized for science in astronomy at INSU is through national programs, and we have 7 of these national programs, one of them being PCMI. So you have the whole map here of the national programs, one for the sun and the sun-Earth interactions, the one for stellar physics, one for planetology, so one for the interstellar medium, one for cosmology and galaxies, one for high energy astrophysics, and one for gravitation references, astronomy, and metrology. And while we have some other tools that we use for the structure of the community, but I won't address that here. These programs are very important for the way we do astronomy in France, because this is essentially how we organize the community. One is missing, a national program on exoplanets and even on astrobiology. For this, we have a kind of a transverse program for exoplanets, which is a combination or an interaction between the PCMI, stellar physics, planetology, and solar physics. And for exobiology or astrobiology in English, we try to set up something which is higher level, including INSU, but not only astronomy, but all the fields at INSU and all the fields at CNRS. This is being made, but it cannot be yet presented as a national program. So this plays a very important role in the way we are organized. These have been are funded on an annual basis. Some of them are very old. I don't know exactly if PCMI is the oldest one, but I did a bit of archaeology and found that it was initialized, let's put it this way, at the end of the 80s before becoming a national program, and then became a national program 25 years ago. So it's quite a lifetime in a career of a scientist. And it's funded at the level of 160 or 70 kilo euros per year. You don't pay for salaries with that, but you pay for missions, you pay for workshops, everything that will help you to organize the community, and of course you pay for some projects. This particular program is very transverse in astronomy, in the sense that it is connected with most of the other programs. I spoke about exoplanets, so that's one example where you have a connection with 3 other programs, but there is also an obvious connection with cosmology and galaxies, and a connection with high energy astrophysics. So essentially you connect to all programs and therefore all the fields in astronomy, because you start with the enrichment of the ISM by stars, but also the birth of stars from the ISM, the link of the ISM with the CMB or the infrared counterpart studies, the molecular complexity, the astrometry, the astrochemistry, sorry, and therefore the origin of life and the emergence of life in the universe. So the spectrum is quite broad, scientifically speaking, and this is why this is one of our very central programs in astronomy. Also, it's very broad in the type of instruments, spatial missions, or methodology you're using. Well, we've seen that today, but I guess you've seen that also the other days of this workshop. I think today we've touched on millimetric observations, not radio observations, I think, but I think it's been mentioned at some point that you will be using radio observations, for example, with the SKA for the interstellar medium. And this is a topic for which France, we hope France will be very active in SKA, but also we saw infrared observations, ground-based instrumentation. We heard about the ELT today, or even the VLTI. Space instrumentation is very, very important to access, for example, the UV domain, but also the far infrared. We've heard also about using Gaia the use of Gaia to measure the extinction of the interstellar medium. And we heard about several techniques, imaging, of course, a growing need for high angular resolution observations, spectroscopy, of course, and polarimetry, either linked to dust grains, but also to the magnetic field. I don't know if there will be some more talks on modeling and simulations in the coming days, or perhaps you had that already yesterday. But that's already a characteristics of this field, and of course of laboratory astrophysics, which is a very important topic for the interstellar medium studies, and that's one of the major programs where we have where laboratory astrophysics is very important. We have both, let's say, lab scale experiments like what exists at IRAP in Toulouse, or at IAS, or in some other labs, but also large infrastructures like Soleil, for example, in France. And a very important characteristics of PCMI is the fact that it is, let's say, fully cross-disciplinary. And that's a major feature of this program. And I can say here that well, CNRS is almost a perfect research organization to host this type of programs, because, well, in PCMI, well, of course you are funded by INSU, but also by the Institute for Chemistry and the Institute for Physics. But I think you also have people who participate from other institutes like INSIS for engineering, and IN2P3 for particle physics. So once again, that's a very broad range of topics and of fields that contribute to PCMI. And as you know, cross-disciplinarity is very famous in large organizations. Everybody wants to go for cross-disciplinary things, but in the same time, that's very difficult to do because people are never specialists of their own fields, but they are specialists of various fields, or they are isolated in their own field where nobody else almost does what they do in their real professional life. And so that's difficult from a career standpoint, but also to get sufficient fundings to do your own research. And I think that's a very strong asset of PCMI, to be able to get fundings every year for this kind of programs that mixes different categories of scientists from various topics. So I think at least for that, it is a very important program. Of course, it is important for the topic in general, but also for the fact that it allows to have all these people working together without being too much dependent on programs that are short-lived, like 1, 2, 3, 4 years at maximum, which is as well very fashioned nowadays. If you go to European programs, or if you go to even CNRS programs at what is called the mission for interdisciplinarity at CNRS, you cannot be funded for 25 years. It's not possible. So that's another very important feature of PCMI and of the existence of these national programs, which is that you can plan over very long time scales, and you can be sure that the community will not dissolve after just a few years, because the community will have to focus on another program funded for another very short term. So that's a major feature of this kind of program. So this was one of the major features of one of the assets of PCMI for INSU, and I guess for you as well. For me, as director of astronomy at CNRS, PCMI is very important, because this is the way for me to talk to the community. When I want to talk to this community, I talk to Perrin, to Jérôme, and to Ludovic, and I know that I can reach most of you behind them. And that's very important, for example, when planning for the future of the field, to know exactly where to find the people to talk to. Especially if you want to to get some prospects for the use of some space instruments or some ground-based instruments, and that you need to decide whether you will put some resources into these equipments. Also, because it is a national organization, well, we all belong to labs, and in our labs, we all belong to teams with excellent individuals. But if you can have all these individuals work, or at least talk together at a national scale, that makes the field even stronger. And that's another important thing of this national program and for PCMI. And let me now come back to the difficulty of doing interdisciplinary sciences. One of the difficulty, therefore, is that individuals, even if they are excellent, may be lacking visibility locally. And of course, if you can team up into a national program like that, you may not be highly visible individually in your CNRS institute, for example, in chemistry or in physics, but belonging to PCMI, that raises your visibility and makes it easier to defend your research and request some fundings and some ways to do your research. So I think these are, in a summary, the most important features for me for PCMI, and to continue to have PCMI as one of our national programs at CNRS INSU. I think I can say, well, I will leave my position in 2 months from now, but PCMI will live much longer than my time at CNRS INSU. I have no doubt about that, and thanks also to all the partners who contribute to the funding. So I mentioned the other institutes at CNRS, but also CNES. We are hosted by CNES here today, and also CEA, which is also a very important partner for the program. So I don't know if you have questions about PCMI, the way it is handled by CNRS, by the partners, etc. But I think that's essentially what I wanted to say today.
Okay, thank you, Guy, for these encouraging words. So any comments or questions?
I have a question about INSU. With the perspective at INSU, we see that there is a transversality between domains. And how does this how the programs in astrophysics will settle into this needed transverse organization of INSU?
Well, first of all, we do have transverse programs at CNRS INSU in astronomy. There's one of the programs which is there on the slide, the national programs for planetology, is already shared between astronomy and geophysics. And it is likely that in the future, in a way or another, there will be new connections with the specialist of planetary atmospheres, which are in a domain called ocean and atmosphere, or a specialist of the critical zone. As soon as we will extend these programs, so we will build a program on astrobiology. So this is already the case for at least one programs, and it's neither mandatory nor impossible that we think of other extensions to other domains at INSU.
As a follow-up, there has been a reform, a change in the way the credits are attributed. So could you explain? So we tried to state it to the community, but I think it's important that it's coming from you and above. Why this reform was essential?
Okay, so the reform was not driven by astronomy. It was for other reasons. The first reasons of all is that the national programs are a tool of INSU alone. It's not a CNRS tool. There's no tool at CNRS saying there are national programs in all institutes of CNRS. It's a choice made by the communities at INSU, all 4 communities, and therefore sometimes we have difficulties to explain that to other institutes. And the advantage of that is that while we have created the tool that we need, which is always important, the difficulty or the drawback is that when you go and talk to an institute at CNRS who is not already part of a national program, it's difficult to make them understand that they should be part of it and to make them a partner. Some institute like the Institute of Physics or the Institute of Chemistry are used to that, but some others are not. So that is one difficulty when we defend the budget of INSU at CNRS level. It's sometimes difficult to make them understand that we need these national programs. Because in other institutes, the money that we put into the national program, so you have some numbers at the bottom of that slide here, essentially in the astronomy budget, half of the budget directly goes to the laboratories, half of the projects goes to the laboratories through the national programs. Whereas in other institutes, it essentially all goes directly to the lab. So that's a different scheme, and it is not systematically well understood that we properly use the money by doing so, because it appears to be introducing many steps in the way the money flows down to the scientists, and so from the outside it can be understood as being an inefficient way of distributing the money. So that's the first point, that we have to show that the money is distributed in an efficient way, and in the end to do very good science. And that was one of the drivers for this reform. The other driver was that there was a need for some partners outside CNRS, not in astronomy, to better understand the programs and therefore to try to make their life simpler in a way by focusing on a very limited number of tools that they could easily understand and for which we could easily sell them the programs and their investment into the program. So it ended up in 3 tools. We extended that to 5 tools for astronomy. So that's the rationale behind this reform, actually. And what is important to me is that, well, there's a rationale for the reform, but it must not break the synergies, the momentum in our communities that are allowed by these programs. And I think it's been the case that from what I can see in terms of the number of programs that have been requested since the past, well, in the past 2 years, and the amount of money that has been requested, that the programs are still alive, and we have not prevented the colleagues to use these programs for their own research.
Are there other questions or comments?
Maybe on the same subject. So could it be a problem for the other institutes that you see the programs that can last 20 years, whereas the usual GDRs are usually will last 5 years and can be renewed when you define a budget?
Well, it's more a problem for us to be able to defend, to motivate them to give us a contribution every year. That's the difficulty is more here than for these institutes. Honestly, I don't think it's a major issue. It's a different way of working than what they do with the GDR. But sometimes some institute may want to reduce their contribution to the national programs, but I have not seen in 5 years any institute deciding to withdraw from one of the national programs, because the duration of the programs would be much larger than what they're used to with the classical CNRS tools. They are sensitive to what their communities are doing, and this is what matters.
Okay, so thank you very much, Lee.